Where does the word Nepanoa come from, Alberto?
Nepanoa, Chuck, is Nahuatl. So it's the language spoken by the Aztecs. And Nepanoa means to accompany, means to be a companion.
Oh, wow. I like that.
I did too. And then when I found it and I realized that nepanoa.com was available, because as you know, there are no .coms available anymore.
I know.
I immediately bought it for $12. Those were the best $12. That and the screen. Those were the two best investments.
Okay, Doug, we are ready.
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We're very excited about having Alberto Villarreal with Nepanoa to speak about nearshoring. And to introduce myself, I'm Chuck Cross. I'm with Trade Show Consulting. And I'm going to introduce Cecilia Vargas in a second. But I just wanted to let you know that we're very proud sponsors of this event. As many of you know, COVID has brought an opportunity for us here in North America to bring back manufacturing, whether it's reshoring or nearshoring or whatever other term that Alberto may spring upon you about bringing these companies back here to North America. We really look at the opportunity to make this hemisphere the manufacturing mecca in the world. And I think we have the ability to do that. And with what Alberto will speak to you in a few minutes about, I think will help you in your business as well with finding suppliers, finding opportunities to move operations, whether it's the US or Mexico or Canada. And we're just very excited about the opportunity. I also wanted to mention that the events that we do, have Cecilia talk about it post the webinar, but there's also an event that Alberto and Nepanoa is doing in Chicago, May 18th. It's called the Mexico Expansion Forum, and I'll let him tell you a little bit about that, but it's going to be May 18th in Chicago, so he may mention that at the end as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cecilia Vargas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cecilia Vargas. I am the events director for Trade Show Consulting. I'm so happy of being here, and well, thanks everyone for joining us in this webinar. As a reminder, we will have 10 minutes at the end to answer all of your questions. And please enjoy this webinar. Now, I want to introduce our speaker for today, Alberto Villarreal. Alberto is the founder and managing director for Nepanoa. Alberto founded Nepanoa with the mission of accompanying multinational businesses through transformation and endeavors in the United States and Latin America by providing expert guidance and an unrivaled collaborative experience. Nepanoa began operations in 2020 and has resources in Chicago, Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Monterrey. Over his career, Alberto has collaborated with some of the largest companies in the world in pursuit of transforming their businesses operations in different countries. In doing so, he has the opportunity to lead engagements related to strategy, technology, finance, mergers and acquisitions, operations, and regulatory compliance, becoming an expert in international transformation efforts for many companies. Thank you, Alberto, and welcome to this webinar, and thank you for being here. Go ahead.
Ceci, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I don't think anyone in my family would do it better. So thank you for that. Chuck, thank you very much as well for the invitation. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to meet you. Alberto Villarreal Garza, and I am the founder and managing director of Nepanoa. Something very important. What does Nepanoa mean? Nepanoa is a word in Nahuatl. Nahuatl was the language of the Aztecs, and Nepanoa means to accompany, to be a companion. And that's exactly what we do with our clients on both sides of the border, on the United States and Mexico. Today, we're going to be talking about nearshoring. Is it a game changer, a trend, or a fad? It's funny because over the last 12 to 18 months, we've probably read a million articles around nearshoring, right? Local media, global media, everybody's talking about nearshoring and what it is. And there's actually data that supports all of this articles, and there's actually companies moving manufacturing home, either to the United States, Mexico, even in Canada, right? Taking advantage of USMCA, or, as we call it in Mexico, TEMEC. All right, so today we're going to talk about, number one, COVID-19 disruptions to global supply chains, other geopolitical conflicts that impact North America, the competitiveness of the North American region as a whole, nearshoring and ally shoring, land availability in Mexico is one of the challenges, FDI for each one of the states, main sectors of investments, recent investments of companies in Mexico, future trends that we see. And then finally, we're going to come back and we're going to answer the question, is nearshoring a game changer, a trend, or a fad? So we have these three options. And the first one, game changer, is nearshoring really going to be a change to the way that we do business as a whole going forward for the next 10, 30, 40, 50 years? Is it just a trend? Is it something where, given the current situations, this is something that is happening and that it will continue to happen, but it's not necessarily changing the way that we live? Or is it just a fad? Hey, it's something that's a quick fix, something that we can do quickly so that we can continue operating and then, go back to the old ways of work. And I wanted to keep these three options throughout the presentations because we will come back to it, and maybe in the Q&A, we can have some questions that are related to it. Okay, but those are the three options that, we will this presentation. Team, what has happened? So if you look at the imports into the United States from 2017, you're going to see that China was by far the biggest trading partner, right? You see 22% of those imports were coming from China. Mexico maintained a 13%. And then other Asian competitive economies had 12%. Well, fast forward 5 years, and you would say, okay, you would think that everything that is not coming from China anymore would go into Mexico. But you realize that that is not the case. We only grew 1% from Mexico, of the imports from Mexico into the United States. But what you see is a growth in the other Asian economies by 5%. And here we're talking about Philippines, we're talking about Indonesia, we're talking about India, for example. So when we think about nearshoring, we say, oh, Mexico is alone. Well, yes, from a nearshoring perspective, but we also need to understand that businesses that are working in China or that used to work in China, they also go into other countries that are in Asia. It's not necessarily a, hey, I have to go back into the United States and Mexico, right? I may even, just continue to operate in Asia, just in a different country. So that really brings the competition up, right? Forget about the competition between the states, right? Forget about Chihuahua versus Coahuila versus Nuevo León. I mean, we're competing as a country in Mexico in this case, for all these investments, and we're competing against other countries that are on the other side of the world, literally. Now, in 2023, what we have seen is that this trend is going up with the Q1 numbers, and because Mexico has received great investments in Q1, and we'll go and we'll review those numbers at the end of the presentation. Okay. Now, also, from a container freight perspective, all of this, right over here, is when you have COVID, right? All the way from December 2021. So you see that the rates, of incoming products from the United States, from China into the United States went through the roof. And more importantly, also the timing, right? We were waiting weeks and weeks and weeks for supplies, and they just didn't get here. Now, what's interesting is that those rates have come down, right? So if we look at the end of 2022 and what do we have of 2023, those rates have really come down back to the 2019 levels. So you're going to say, well, maybe that is going to help us, right? Continue to work, with what used to be the main trading partner, which is China. Well, that is not the case. And why is that not the case? Well, first of all, we have a US-China trade war, right? Which we all know about. So for many of these Chinese suppliers that used to work with American companies, their products have become more expensive, from 5 to 25% more expensive, just because of the tariffs that have been put into place. And that relationship, it doesn't seem to be getting better. And actually, we don't expect that it will get better. We are getting into a new way of doing business, which is let's bring our supply chains closer to us. Diversified, yes, but at least closer to us. And the other item that's impacted us, the other geopolitical conflict that impacts us is the Russia-Ukraine war. Well, Alberto, you hadn't mentioned Russia and Ukraine in the introduction of this presentation. How does it impact us? Well, it impacts us because the Russia-Ukraine war impacts heavily all of Europe, all the suppliers and all the clients that we have in Europe. And more importantly, because countries are forced to take sides. And well, I think it's pretty obvious as to who Russia is, partnering with and who the United States is partnering with. So these are conflicts that continue to affect us today, and they don't seem to be resolved anytime soon. So that brings me to the next point, guys. What happens when you look at the map of the world and you see North America versus the rest of the world? The North American region, and that includes the 3 countries of North America, because sometimes when we say North America, we think United States, right? And we need to think North America, it's Canada, United States, and Mexico. When we look at the region, we see the most competitive region in the world. Our borders are broad, and we have a fantastic free trade agreement in USMCA that enables us to do business really, across the 3 countries. Guys, our borders are the busiest ones in the world. We're used to doing businesses. This is not something new. This is something that has been going on since the early 90s. We share time zones. And right now we're talking about manufacturing, but the clients that we help at Nepanoa are in manufacturing, but many of them are in the services industries. And this, being in the same time zone, really helps do business across the 3 countries. And I'll give you an example. Instead of having your support or service center in India, you move it to Mexico and you maintain, that time zone and it facilitates managing a business. Right? Guys, we produce 27% of the world's total GDP. We're huge. We're huge. We're the most powerful region. And very important, and this is something that we need to work on, the 3 countries, but in particularly Mexico, right? We have maritime, rail, and in regular truck, right? Routes. So we are connected, very, very well connected. And there's one more point that it's not here. And the 6th one is people. When we look at North America as a whole, we have more than 450 million people, in between the 3 countries. And more importantly, when you look at Mexico in particular, you're going to see a younger workforce, right? And the people will always drive innovation and we need it to produce, right? What we consume and what we export. So as a region, North America is the most competitive region in the world. Now let's talk about nearshoring and ally shoring, okay? So when we focus particularly on Mexico, right, and we talk about nearshoring, what we're seeing is that what's expected for 2024 is that just from a nearshoring investment perspective, right, the exports into the United States are going to increase by $45 billion. And to be honest, this is a conservative number, guys. It will be higher than that. And the differences between nearshoring and ally shoring is when you nearshore, what you're doing is you're bringing it closer, geographically closer to your border, right? And there's a time and cultural synergies that work with your business. So for us, nearshoring, when we talk about that, yes, it can be United States, Canada, Mexico, but nearshoring may also be Costa Rica. Nearshoring may also even be Colombia. Nearshoring may be Brazil. I'm bringing it closer to me. I'm bringing it to this side of the world. Now, The difference between nearshoring and ally shoring is that in ally, you're really, really, really going into business in countries or in locations that you know that are allies of the United States, in this case, right, to do business with, which is a lot more safe, right? You get to a point where you say, okay, Mexico and the United States are going to be allies for many, 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 many more years, in addition to being also a nearshoring strategy. All right, guys. So what is, I mean, going back to the original question, is it a game changer, a trend, or a fad? Right? We already analyzed the geopolitical conflicts that are triggering nearshoring. We already analyzed the difference between nearshoring and ally shoring, the benefits that it may bring. But also, we need to talk about, hey, is this really happening or not? And I want you to take a look at the numbers that we have on the screen. And this information comes from Jones Lang LaSalle, right? So when we look, which is one of the biggest real estate companies in the world, Jones Lang LaSalle, okay? But look at this, look at all these numbers, guys. We're talking about under 6% of land availability for industrial space in Mexico in general, right? Let's focus on the big or on the hot states, right? Which is usually Nuevo León, which is right here. You have it, Monterrey and Nuevo León, you have under 4%. You have Juárez, you have 5%, right? If you go into Chihuahua, look at this, it's 2.6%, Saltillo, only 2%. So when you see this, you say, okay, out of all the industrial buildings that are out there in Mexico, the availability, the vacancy rate is very, very, very low. So that tells you that nearshoring, it continues to become a reality. And that also tells you that there's going to be a lot of investments in real estate, as we have all seen, right? But that is proof that this is actually continuing to happen. So when we go back to our original number of only 14% of exports, right, going into the United States, so right over here, that it went up to 14%, right? This number over here. When we go back to this number, that's why we can identify that the trend is actually going up, because this availability numbers that we're reviewing today, those were not the same availability numbers that we had 3, 4, or 5 years ago. Okay. So it continues to, so the demand for land in Mexico, it continues to increase. Now, if we focus particularly on the States, well, we've all heard of, Tesla going to Nuevo León, of course, but after that, there's plenty of other companies, there's plenty of other states taking a lot of investments and in different industries. So particularly, right, we have, Estado de Mexico and Mexico City, taking a big chunk of this. You have Guadalajara, right, the Guadalajara area, Jalisco, right, there with technology development, electronics, right? And of course, you have Nuevo León, very big. Now, the states that are right besides Jalisco, right besides Nuevo León, will also benefit. So, for example, Coahuila, we expect Coahuila to continue to increase. We expect Chihuahua to continue to increase. We expect Tamaulipas to continue to increase right here. Okay. And the same thing happens, for Jalisco. We expect Guanajuato to continue to increase, right? Querétaro, which is killing it and has been killing it for quite some time as well. Okay. That's what we see, guys. That's what we're seeing. And of course, you always have the northern states and the northern city, the border cities, really doing a good job, right? In Baja California or, here in Juárez, right? You will always have those cities that are just, from a maquila perspective, it just makes sense, right? For businesses to be, present in Mexico. Now, the beautiful thing about this map, and that I want to highlight, is that we will be seeing more and more investments into the center of the country, into the south of the country. We've been getting a lot of interest in San Luis. We've been getting a lot of interest in Aguascalientes as well. Why? Because while the northern states are used to working with these American companies, already have a manufacturing infrastructure, are super competitive, well, it's getting to the point where you talk about people, real estate, even utilities. Well, it may be a better option to venture out a little bit further south and, for companies to start investing in other parts of Mexico as well, including Puebla, Querétaro, Guanajuato, and then even further south if possible. Of course, Alberto, well, then the logistics becomes an issue. Yes, absolutely. But logistics will always be an issue. And that's something that the Mexican government has to invest in and has to improve, right? And I don't even want to talk about, the southeast of Mexico, because if we keep drawing this map, here you have Florida, here you have Georgia, you have Louisiana, right? So this, may even be in the future, hopefully sooner than later, a great place for companies that, need to ship across the Gulf and get into the southeast of the United States. But that's for another, webinar that we'll do, in some time. But that's where, the trend or the growth is going to happen in Mexico, right? You continue in the north and also in the center part of the country. Okay. And Alberto, what are the main sectors of investment into Mexico? Manufacturing is a big chunk. Of course, you didn't need to attend this webinar to know that this was the case, but did you know that it was only 36%? Personally, every time we update this slide and we look at this data, I'm intrigued to see how much logistics is growing. And logistics is growing for two reasons. The first one is, yes, nearshoring, cross-border. But the second one is final mile delivery. You're gonna say, why? Well, you'd be surprised to learn that in Mexico, e-commerce is learning 20% year over year. Well, who's delivering all those packages, right? That's why there's also an opportunity there for logistics in final mile delivery. But most of it comes into manufacturing. A chunk of it comes into logistics. Then we have investments in media. We have investments in financial services, of course, as you know, and then others. It's a catch-all, it's 20%. But if you are in the manufacturing space, and either you're looking for clients in the United States, or if you're a company, setting up shop in Mexico, well, guess what? You're not alone. There's a lot of people doing it. And going back to your original question about game changer, trend, or fad, I think you start seeing, some coherent data to start making your opinion as to this is a game changer, a trend, or a fad. All right, guys, and then recent investments, which of course have happened in Mexico recently. The big one, which is Tesla, that $5 billion, investment that they have started to break ground already on the facility. You have BMW, you have Nissan, Ford, Daikin, Continental, Kansas City Southern, Bosch, Whirlpool. These are investments that, these are the ones that make the news. And these are the big ones, right? That we all know about, because these are logos that we all recognize. And you're going to say, well, Alberto, most of them are in the auto industry. Yeah, correct. Most of them are in the auto industry, but it's because it's the brands that we recognize. But there are plenty of more investments that don't make the news. Plenty of more investments that are between 10, 15, $20 million that are valuable investments for the country and that continue to pile on this idea of nearshoring and bringing manufacturing home. Actually, most of the investments occur at that tier 2, tier 3 level, right, of companies that are supplying to these big manufacturers. And we're seeing it in metals, we're seeing them in plastics, we're seeing them, in the aerospace industry, of course. Here we have Whirlpool, in Nuevo León, but, so it's refrigeration, but also, HVAC, right? We're also seeing investment in there. And coming from different places too. So not all these companies are American, and that's the key, right? You're also seeing European companies. We're also seeing Asian companies, a lot of Asian companies coming, into Mexico. And many of those, as I mentioned, do not make the news. Okay. So finally, what do we see as future trends for this? So from a logistics perspective, and also from a nearshoring and manufacturing perspective. So the first one is, as I mentioned, it's final mile delivery in Mexico from a logistics perspective will continue to grow, right? We are expecting, that industry right now is worth $600 million, and it will and it will continue to grow, more than 20%. Okay, why? Because it's driven by the e-commerce industry in Mexico. Now, here's the thing, guys. When we talk about e-commerce, I do not want you to exclusively focus on what you order so that you can get it in your house on time. Think also from an e-commerce perspective, from a B2B perspective as well. That also counts as e-commerce, right? And there will have to be logistics that actually, that deliver, the products and make sure that our supply chains are efficient. And then finally is ESG investments, right? we have to, in Mexico, make the transition into, ESG, into our businesses becoming safer, more ecological. Why? Because we are part of this new global economy by being so close to the United States and by supporting all of this investment that is coming into our country. Okay. So finally, I will review the way that we started. Is it a game changer? Are we looking at a new North American way where Canada, United States, and Mexico continue to be the most competitive region in the world and become a powerhouse? Right? Really, we produce what we need here, and in North America, we export to other countries. We use USMCA or TMEC in Mexico heavily, right? Every company that is in Mexico should be thinking, hey, how can I sell into the United States? How can I sell into Canada? Are we going to get to a point where we can collaborate, right, as people freely, among the three countries, where we really became so ingrained that it really doesn't matter if you're located in Mérida, Yucatan, or in Toronto, Canada, you can still work for the same company. This is a trend, right, where it's simply, we are gearing towards, it's a trend that is going on. We are gearing towards, continue to working together and making sure that, things works out. We are taking advantage of nearshoring, right? And we simply have demographic advantages, but we will continue to work with, other suppliers in different parts of the world. Or is this a fad, right? This is just for a short time. Right, Mexico is an unstable administration. We have significant security concerns. This is something that it's only going to last 1 to 2 years, and then it's going to be gone. So I wanted to think about that. What is it? And from our perspective, what we think is that this is a game changer. And here's the reason why. Everything that we have discussed today, focuses on Canada, United States, Mexico becoming closer, Mexico playing a key role in this. We are seeing it on a day-to-day basis. The number of projects, the number of companies that we are helping expand in Mexico, grow in Mexico, the number of Mexican companies that we help come to the United States, come to Canada. This is more than a trend. This is already happening. And I do believe that in the next 15 to 20 years, really, from a business perspective, Canada, United States, and Mexico will be tremendously integrated. Technology, processes, people, our borders will function absolutely different than the way that they are functioning today. There's a lot of investment going into the way that we transact among the three countries. And but more importantly, it's about the people. When we look at Mexico and the way that Mexico, as the young people that we have, we continue to graduate solid engineers. Think about it. In 1990, very few people spoke English. Today, a lot of people in Mexico speak English, and that trend, is continuing to grow. We do believe that this is truly a game changer, and that we're moving into a North American future with the three countries working together towards, growth and being the most competitive region of the world. Ceci, that is what we have today.
Excellent.
So I would love to open it up for comments or questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Alberto. It was very interesting hearing you. And well, yes, I have a couple of questions. Let's start. The first one for you. What are Mexico's competitive advantages in comparison to Asian countries?
Fantastic. Thank you very much for asking that question. So Mexico is tremendously competitive. Number one, the people piece, which I mentioned at the end, we cannot ignore it. Mexico is a young country with the average age is between 25 and 30 years old. We're graduating more than 350,000 engineers a year. Per capita, that's more engineers than when India is I'm sorry, guys, that what India is graduating, right? Then You look at all the free trade agreements that Mexico has. It's the country with the most free trade agreements in the world. So signed free trade agreements, if I recall correctly, we have around I think it's 14, but then, just relationship, right? And in good, how to say it, in good, establishment of trade relationships with other countries, I think it's around 33. So that makes us tremendously competitive. And into that, Cecilia, you add, so it's young people, well educated, or we're getting more well educated people, all the free trade agreements that we have that enables us to work with other countries in the world, fantastic weather, right? That really helps us. Access to the Atlantic Ocean and to the Pacific Ocean. The fact that we're very close to the United States and the Canadian market, but also a North American culture. We do have a North American culture. Even though we are in Mexico, we are used to working among North America. So with that being said, that's why I think Mexico is more competitive than many of the Asian countries that we're competing against.
Excellent. I agree with you. It's amazing how Mexico is working now, and it's really good how we are partnering with the America, and we are doing great things together. So thank you for this great explanation. And I want to jump in the next question. Can you provide examples of countries that have successfully expanded operations to Mexico, companies, and the benefits they have experienced?
Oof, there's plenty. So let's take, for example, in the auto industry, and you can choose, any of the OEMs that are operating in Mexico. Let's take GM, for example, or Kia, for example. When they came to Mexico, right? They came to Mexico, we have Volkswagen in Puebla, there's plenty, right? Tesla that's coming, when they came to Mexico, the general thought of the public, the people that are really not, making these decisions, but that we see it, right? We see, okay, they're coming to Mexico because it's less expensive. Fine, I'll give you that. It's less expensive from a labor perspective. But then when those companies have come to Mexico and they have found that, for example, the retention rate is 60% lower than, I'm 60% higher. I mean, the turnover rate is 60% lower in Mexico than it is in the United States. What does this mean? This means that if I have 100 people and I have a 90% turnover rate, 90% of those people are going to be gone by the end of the year. And I'm going to have to rehire and retrain. And you look at Mexico and you see, that turnover rate is 30% or less than 30%. When you realize that the engineers that we have in Mexico are high quality, that the parts that we are getting out of Mexico are of super high quality. When you walk the different plants and you see the security that we have, how we treat people, with their heart, with all the safety measures, right? When you realize that there hasn't been a single company in Mexico that has shut down because of government issues, particularly, in manufacturing space. So it's the stories of those companies that have been operating in Mexico since the early 1990s, some of them even before, right? That simply, the story says it, tells itself, right? And that's why we continue to have these investments coming into the country. But I mean, tangible, you're going to see reduction in labor cost, of course, you're going to see an increase in efficiency and in productivity. Why? That's why companies, when they come to Mexico, they always said, I wish I would have gotten larger. I wish I would have gotten a 200 square foot facility instead of 50,000 square foot, because they realize that it becomes very quickly, a way to fill it up, not only with the current clients in the United States, but also with future clients, around Mexico. So the benefits are pretty clear for everyone to see.
Thank you very much. We have another question from Jose Valencia. He says, what do you think about the low prices that companies in the automotive parts industry from China had? Do the subsidies, among other issues, and are now seeking to obtain in Mexico?
Jose, great question. Thank you very much. And I can only speak for my for my experience. I love the fact that you said subsidies there, right? Due to subsidies and other issues, because yes, that's why they were able to accomplish, those prices. my experience is that Chinese companies are getting the direction from their US clients to come to North America, or I'll simply can't do business with you. End of story. Right. So that's the experience that we've been hearing from both sides, both from the US companies that are dealing with Chinese suppliers, but also from the Chinese companies that we are helping take to Mexico. It's like, hey, I really want my client. I want to continue doing business, but they're asking me to come to North America. So getting into a price discussion here, we would have to analyze, of course, the specific scenario, but we are seeing more and more that trend of I'm moving to North America because I truly just want to maintain my business from the Chinese perspective. But yes, your perspective is correct. Subsidies is what made those prices available, but the tariffs are making up for those subsidies, and that's why we're receiving a lot of opportunities in Mexico. Okay.
Perfect. Very good. And another one says, what about legal certainty?
What about legal certainty? There's many ways that we can take this question, but I assume you mean that in Mexico it's difficult, right, to enforce the rule of law. When you compare Mexico against other countries in the world, and you talk specifically about rule of law, we are around top 30 countries there. Yes, we're not the United States. Absolutely, we're not Canada. But we are not as bad as we Mexicans think. That's number one. But I'm not going to dismiss your comment. It is an issue that we have. But the more important piece, what I would recommend you to do, Venancio, is to take a look into USMCA. Read the TMEC. Read the modern version of the North America Free Trade Agreement. I have done so. Believe me, I'm not an attorney, so it was not one of my best reads, but I did learn a lot about the rules that were established for the three countries to work together. And I think that will shed a lot of light as to what you can do and you can't do, and how safe it is, to operate across the region. Thank you for that question.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have another one. What specific services does Nepanoa offer to companies interested in selling B2B technology solutions into Mexico?
Ooh, wow. Thank you, guys. Thank you for asking that question. Think of us as your Mexico team, right? So everything from the strategy all the way to the execution. So when we talk strategy, we talk about finances, we talk about market assessments. In this case, technology, B2B, we're talking about finding the ideal client, providing a list, right, of clients. We can even perform warm introductions and do, all the sales materials and help you, grow in Mexico. We can help you with the people, right? Finding, hiring the right people. So we really can, be your Mexico expansion team while you focus on your current business. I'm assuming that question came from abroad. So if you're a company abroad and want to go to Mexico, we'll be your Mexico expansion team. That's what it is. Trust us with a full solution. Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Very good. Another one. It says, I am a manufacturing company in Querétaro. We are facing some issues with operational manpower. Do you know the trend about it?
Yeah, great question. Great question. I would love to learn more about your specific situation. We have a great relationship with the government of Querétaro. Actually, Marco del Prete, in what Chuck mentioned at the beginning, Marco del Prete, the Secretary of Economic Development, is coming to Chicago for the Mexico Expansion Forum that we're putting together. Yes, that is a trend that we have started to see, particularly in the hotspots, right? When you talk about Monterrey, when you talk about Querétaro, when you talk about Guadalajara, right, where the wages have started to come up because there's just a lot of investment. In the end, that's not bad for the Mexican people, but from a business perspective, of course, you're struggling. You're starting to see, some people go for better offers, right, or to other places. So what I can tell you is that the demographic of Mexico, and what I mean by demographic is population, is the people that are getting educated, is people speaking English. It looks good. It means that we will have a lot of people working in the next 20 years in Mexico, that there is enough jobs for everyone and there is enough people for everyone to get those jobs, but it could be better. And where could it be better? It could be better in, making sure that people are better trained, right? So that we can, continue to provide, continue to have high quality people for these jobs. I would love to speak with you separately because I would, happy to see your current scenario, right, and provide a more specific answer. But yes, more companies are coming to Mexico, so high regarded talent will be high regarded talent everywhere, right? So if your plant has great people, yes, they will be coming for your people, but that just raises the competitiveness of Mexico as a whole, right?
Exactly. Very good. Another one, it says, what impact will Tesla's new projects have? That's a good one.
Oof, no, well, there's plenty of data out there. Just think about it, right? Just by this investment, you are already, just with those $5 billion, you're already bringing in more money into the state of Nuevo León than you did in the past 2 years. So that's how big it is. And the ramifications of such an investment in Mexico are, I wish I could tell you a number like 5 or 10 or 15, but I would just say a couple of them. Number one, internationally, Mexico is positioned very well because you have a public company, a trusted company in Tesla. I know that there are some Elon Musk haters out there. Regardless of your opinion of Elon Musk, right? Tesla's stock price speaks for itself, right? And the product that they put in sell, and they trusted, Mexico, and they trusted Nuevo León. So that's number one. Number two, the Tesla suppliers. Even though Nuevo León already has, and it's not only Nuevo León, it's Tamaulipas, it's Coahuila, it's San Luis, it's the whole country, really. We already have vast suppliers, right? For, Tesla. There will still be more coming, which will mean more investment for Mexico, and which will mean more jobs for Mexico, right? And also just how it brings up, guys, the Mexican economy in general. And let's just focus on Nuevo León if you want. But the number of jobs that are going to be created by Tesla, plus the number of jobs that will have to be created by the ecosystem, that's the key. So those are the impacts that you're seeing when you bring those types of companies to your country. When, the big drama about Tesla, if they were going to go to Hidalgo or to Nuevo León, some people said, well, it may not be a good idea for them to go to Nuevo León because they already have Kia over there. And then you're going to have GM. It's like, wait. How is that not beneficial? I get it, right? You have people, you have pollution, that's fine. But at the same time, you want to bring more investment. And that's what drives the competitiveness of Mexico forward.
Very good. Thank you very much. We have another question. It says, what specific industry are dominating when it comes to nearshoring to Mexico?
Say that again, Cecilia, I'm sorry. You kind of broke off. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, sure. What specific industries are dominating when it comes to nearshoring to Mexico?
So the manufacturing, of course, we're seeing a lot of auto, definitely. Surprisingly, aerospace, that includes, but surprisingly pharma, guys, pharmaceutical manufacturing. We've seen a little trend there as well. And that's about it. It's automotive, aerospace, and we've seen a lot of some pharma. But of course, that derives into plastics, that derives into metals, that, so it's really the sub-industries, it's what's important, right? But yeah, but those are the three main industries that are driving the growth in Mexico. Now, that's from a manufacturing perspective, because from a technology perspective, we're growing a lot too. Actually, a lot of the investment that has gone into Jalisco has been related to IT, right? Because you have Amazon there, you have Dell there, you have Oracle there, right? And those are also jobs that are coming into Mexico, well-paid jobs, right? From an IT perspective out there. I'll give you an example. An IT engineer in Guadalajara is going to be more expensive than an IT engineer in Mérida. Why? Because you have that, hub there. And the same thing happens for automotive. The same thing happens for aerospace, just going back to people and how much they get paid.
Very good. I agree. Okay, I think I still have time for one more question, and it will be, what specific industries? No, that's the one you just answered. How does the labor market in Mexico compare to other offshoring destinations?
How does the labor market in Mexico compare to offshoring destinations? As in, it truly depends on which country you're comparing it to. If it's Asia, if it's Mexico, but I will say that, let's talk about this side of the world. Mexico, Colombia, Brazil. You may think of Peru, right? So from a labor perspective, Brazil is more expensive than us, but we from a labor perspective, we're simply less expensive. I mean, sorry. Let me rephrase that. Brazil is more expensive than Mexico, and Mexico is a little more expensive than the rest of the world. Now, that is compensated by the factors that we were mentioning before. We share the border with the United States, time zone, we are super close, which ultimately leads into transparency. So I'm living in Chicago. I've been here for 13 years. With our clients that we have in the Midwest, we want to go to our facilities in Mexico, and we hop on a flight and we're there. And the fact that you can resolve those issues personally, immediately, it just makes you think that for some businesses, Mexico becomes the southernmost state of the United States for some businesses, right? Because it's so close, it's so easy to do business, from an American perspective.
Yes, very good, very good. Okay, the last one, it says, does Nepanoa have to reach into the Mexican government to facilitate the development of large-scale industrial-sized projects, combining multiple IoT technology solutions to advance Mexico well into the 21st century?
Wow, those are like 3 questions in one, guys. So
yeah.
The first one, we are not government officials at all, but here's the thing, this is the space that we live in, right? And at some point in Mexico, you will always have to touch base with the Mexico government. Now, our experience has been that the Mexico government, particularly for foreign direct investment projects, are super helpful, super helpful. We really haven't had any horror stories, right? Or like, oh, the project halted because the government didn't help me or because it took some time. No. I mean, it's always been good to navigate it. And depending on the project, we focus on that state. So if we're taking a company to Chihuahua, we work with the government of Chihuahua. If we're taking a company to Nuevo León, work with Nuevo León, Querétaro, Jalisco, right, Mexico, etc. So yeah.
Very good. Okay, we have more questions, but I think they can reach out.
We can do the last one. We can do the last one. So let's see if that's okay. Well, how are we doing time? We can do the last one. The last one's interesting.
Yeah, very good. Let me read it. We have seen a very good projects compared last year, but many of them are under approvals, and most international companies are saying economy, dollar versus peso, and political situation is making troubles to release money. What is American perception about Mexico market?
Enrique, thank you very much for that question. Yes, many of those projects are under approval, but let's talk about what industries are the ones under approval. I mean, we know that from a federal perspective, right, government projects related to energy would be halted. I mean, we know that from 6 years ago, right? That's nothing new. The issue is that those investors that were investing in energy, for example, will not invest in any other industry because they have $500 million that are just stuck there, or $1 billion that are stuck there. So I get that perspective. Now, for other industries, I haven't particularly seen what you're mentioning. And I'll be very honest with you. Yes, on the energy side, but not on all others. That's number one. Now, the second point that you were mentioning there, which I thought was very interesting, is the US dollar versus the Mexican peso. So yes, the Mexican peso has appreciated 10% since the beginning of the year. And that is truly a reflection of what we're seeing in the market. And no, I'm not here to tell you that everything in Mexico is fine, because you know that it isn't, and I know that it isn't. But at least, what the market is seeing, and the reason that the peso is moving that way is because the debt of the country is simply not there, right? In COVID, we didn't take more debt. There weren't any subsidies, right? And then also we're seeing all this foreign direct investment. And there's a third piece that not many people talk about. And Mexico is in the top 15 economies in the world. Usually we rank between 13 and 11, depending on the year and depending on who we're comparing against. That's top. We Mexicans, I mean, we tend to say, well, that's not the highest. No, it's not the highest. We get it. But look at the rest of the world. So you as an investor, where are you going to put your money in? And I invite you to have this conversation. Let's go together to Italy. Let's put it in Italy. Let's put it in Portugal. No, I'm serious. Okay, sounds good. Okay, let's go to Africa. Where are we going to put it in Africa? What are we going to do down there? You're going to go to Europe? Okay, let's go to South America. You're going to put in Peru, or you're going to put in Colombia? You're gonna put it in Bolivia? Where are you gonna put it? So that's the part that I think most people don't realize. When you look at the rest of the world, is like, oh, Mexico actually sounds like a pretty sweet deal. And that is what we miss as Mexicans. When we look at everybody else, there's many things and we will be better, but we're not as bad as, compared to other places. And that is very important. And believe me, you're talking to someone that, deals with the US Mexico, the US dollar versus Mexican peso exchange rate on a daily basis. And yeah, but I mean, that's what the market is showing.
Excellent, Alberto. This has been very interesting. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. And well, I don't see more questions here from the audience, but please feel free to reach out, Alberto, if you have more questions or you wanna discuss any particular subject.
Oh, and Ceci, just if you let me do a shameless plug, and thank you, Chuck, for the opportunity. But in Chicago, May 18th, we're doing the Mexico Expansion Forum. We're bringing the Secretaries of Economic Development from Querétaro, the states of Querétaro, Nuevo León, Jalisco, Sinaloa, and Chihuahua. So, for any American companies that are interested in going to Mexico, it's always good to touch base with them, to listen, what their states have to offer. And of course, work on the investment in Mexico. So happy to have you guys, happy to host you there. Go into our website. There's a link there. So thank you for letting me do the shameless plug, Chuck and Ceci.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Alberto. Before we end this webinar, we would like to invite you to this Welding, Automation, and Fabrication Experience. It's a new trade show called WAFE. This is a groundbreaking new experience and way to meet qualified buyers in welding, automation, and fabrication industry. So here are the dates. It will be on October 3rd and 4th in Hacienda Jurica in Querétaro. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to have more information. And again, Alberto, we really appreciate your time. We have a great time hearing from your experience. And well, please reach out to him if you have more questions. Someone is asking about the presentation material, Alberto. I don't know if you can share it with the... Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
I was saying that no, we cannot share. Just
Okay.
kidding. So everybody can use it. No problem. If you change anything, just make sure you say it's not Nepanoa.
Very good. Okay, we'll share the
time.
presentation with everyone. Thank you. We appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for being here, and we see you next month. Thank you very much. Chuck.
Thank you, Alberto. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.